Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Hussein Rashed, and my topic is how faith and tradition helps in facing hardships. Let me ask all of you, show your hands if you think all human beings, including Muslims, are tested in this world. Okay, how many think that the Shias, us, are tested the most? Raise your hands, compared to the other human beings. Okay, so Allah says in Surah Ankabut, verse 2, that do the people think that they will be left to say that we believe and they will not be tested? Which basically means that God is definitely going to put us on trials and tribulations. Allah also tells us what kind of trials and tribulations we'll be going through in Surah Baqarah, verse 155, when Allah says, "We will test you with fear, hunger, loss of wealth, and lives, and give glad tidings to the patient ones." Now, these lists of trials could not be more applicable to anyone more than me and other people as well. But I've experienced a lot, and I don't want to go into one personal story in detail. I'll give you a range of different trials that I've gone through. Having to leave my country and coming here as a foreigner, having to go through an educational system where I found difficulties in passing my exams, having to see loved ones and family members pass away. Just recently, one of my close friends passed away in an accident, and you all have heard about it. Failing exams in a way where I have to repeat them in order to advance to the next level, which has never happened to me before. There are so many series of trials and tribulations that I've gone through in my life. And I feel that as a religious person, I'm so religious, people tell me, go to the hawza. But I can't go to the hawza with a beard like this and a hairstyle like this, okay? So people tell me that you're so religious, we always see you in mosque, you're always praying so much. Why do you do all of that? Can you not pray at home? Can you not, calm down a little bit? You give us this Maulana vibes all the time. Now, I discovered that my attachment to my faith and the traditions, which means the worshipping acts that we perform, are the reason why I'm still able to cope with the pressures and the trials and tribulations in life. The question says how faith and tradition help you face hardships. That's why I'm going to divide this into how faith and how traditional acts of worship have helped me personally. In faith, our faith is revolved around Quran and Ahlul Bayt. So first of all, Quran says in Surah Ra'd, verse 28, "Surely in Allah's remembrance do hearts find comfort." Whenever I go to the mosque and I pray and I go into prostration and realize that there is a higher entity that controls everything that takes place in this world, and He puts me in a situation because He wants the best for me, I feel peace. And I know that I trust my God, that He can help me out of it. In Hadith for the Ahlul Bayt, the Holy Prophet says, when he was asked what faith was, he replied, patience. Whoever is patient, Allah will make him more patient, and linked to Surah Baqarah verse 216, that you may hate something but it's good for you, and you may love something but it's bad for you, in relation to how I came here and I thought that I was not going to survive. When it comes to tradition, the traditional acts of worship, one of the first things are the azadari. Imam Rida alayhi salam says to Ibn Shabib, if you want to cry for something, cry for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And when we cry, the benefits are we feel stress relief and we feel the reduction of pain in our chests. Second thing is prayer. Sheikh Azhar Nasser 5 years ago gave a scientific benefit of prostration on the turba, and he says that we give the negative energy in that turba and we absorb the positive energy. Think of the other people who are oppressed. Yeah, I've been through a lot of bad things in my life, but it's not as bad as what's happening in Palestine. It's not as bad as losing a loved one and having to think about his tragic passing. And lastly, volunteering, which relates to how community solidarity refers to how they support you emotionally when, for example, there's a mayyit, a janaza, and they help you release that stress and pain. Thank you.
No question, judges. Self-explanatory.
So thank you, Hussein. I guess just to delve a little bit deeper on this community solidarity aspect that you spoke at the end, right? Maybe to give you perhaps as a question a bit more time to talk about that, because I feel like your talk was very much focused on your personal story, which is great. But if you can talk about maybe a specific example of a community crisis that you have gone through, and how did you see the community come together or be brought together by faith? Like if you can talk a little bit about that.
Okay, so I recall several years ago when there was an incident where there were people on a boat and the boat flipped and so many lives were lost. How faith and how our traditional acts of worship have helped the community come together. The best example I can think about is when I was in mosque and there was an announcement that this tragedy did occur. All the community members came out in huge numbers in the mosque, and they in unison have recited Ziyarat Ashura for all of the family members who have lost in that incident. Another example I can give is, personally, as I've insinuated that I am a foreigner. I did not expect when my grandma passed away that she would get the same honor and respect of a burial and a janaza and a dafan the way a regular community member receives over here. Another example is when the volunteer who recently passed away, who was a close friend of mine, when he passed away and I attended his janaza, the number of people who have attended, and he was also a foreigner like me, right? The number of people who came out to recite Surah Yasin and recite the Ziyarat and the Salat al-Mayyit for him shows how a community treats people of their own as family members, even if they don't know those people personally, even if they don't know that person's family lineage and what his contributions were. They maybe have just heard about it. But when they see an incident that takes place like this, which is sad to hear, they come in huge numbers, and that shows solidarity with community members.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll ask another one, Hussein. And I think, it's interesting that this question, separates faith and tradition. And I think that's sort of an interesting framework to think about, because there's a lot of conversation, especially amongst young people, and almost a sort of resilience towards traditions, right? A lot of dialogue that we hear right now is that about like faith is good, maybe traditions are not so good and we need to do away with them. So what are your thoughts about this? I'm sure you've heard these discussions as well. What is your sort of stance on it, and why?
The only reason your faith can be better is if you practice those traditional acts. You can't get closer to Imam Hussein and say, I love Imam Hussein, without going through the process of attending the majlis and cry for his tragedy, right? You cannot say that you love Allah and you thank Him every day if you do not pray. You cannot say that you love the Ahlul Bayt and you are close to the Quran without memorizing their hadith and the Quranic verses and applying them in your life. When people say that my faith is good, well, prove it. If you say that your faith is good, practice it. If you say that your faith is good, part of our faith is tabligh. You have to preach the religion. If that is what you claim and you say that your faith is good, well, learn more about your religion and spread it to everybody. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says actually that in terms of hardship, be patient in regards to the hardship that come your way at the expense of our love, but make sure that you do not leave your Imam and you're not separated from him. Your faith can be very good, but these trials and tribulations will put you in certain situations where your faith can become shaky. And the only way you can strengthen your faith and make sure that you're steadfast towards religion is through these traditional acts. Participate in azadari, volunteer. If you volunteer, you help yourself by helping others. Engage in these traditional acts and your faith will be better, and as a result, you will face hardships with ease.